The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
This is Brian Fulford. A.D. Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
They can follow their dreams.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse.
YT Productions.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, you gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay. Tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Bill, Mike and Charles.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Both Mike and Charles are out on assignments. I have Joe Clay jumping in on here. We'll have Alan Washington jumping in here and giving us showtime. And we might even sneak in the producer, A.D. Drew, to give some comments throughout the show. Welcome to episode 130 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports, for institutions large and small, from NAIA to NCAA We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, along with my co-hosts Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KQH 1230 AM studios with Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that said, let me jump straight to you, Joe Clay. How you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, man. I can't complain at all. I appreciate you having me on as a guest host, sitting in for Mike and Charles. You let me have too many of these opportunities. I'm gonna start feeling a little too comfortable for me.
I like it. That's what it's supposed to do. Tell them what you really think. They're probably listening, so you're gonna make them a little nervous. With that said, let me jump right into it. You know, we like to give some of our followers some love and see what's going on and see what so many are thinking out there in terms of the background. And let me see what some of our followers are saying today. Let me give a shout out before I get you on your thoughts and what do you like to discuss, because softball is hot and heavy, both in the SWAC and the MEAC. We'll give some updates on that, get a little bump in that a little bit. I'm representing today a little bit for Prairie View. I'm gonna give a shout out, first of all, to the men's baseball program. I teased this out Tuesday and told everybody that Prairie View looked like they're gonna be winning the Western Division. I'm not sure how that happened. Surprised a lot of folks, but kudos to the Prairie View A&M baseball program. They've come a long way in terms of program that wasn't looking too well in baseball, but they got it done and they check off that box as they won the Western Division. So they go in as the number one seed on the West Division. Then on the East Division, it's been over for a while. Jackson State goes in as number one seed. We'll jump in that a little bit as the number two seed is Grambling out of the West. They will face the third seed East team, Alabama A&M. That says Jackson State, which is the number one seed out of the East, will face the number 4 team in Texas Southern, program that is game for the tournament. So that may be one to watch in terms of how that goes on. But Texas Southern is struggling at the plate this year, not hitting very well. Pitching, they might be able to do something in their first game. So we'll see what that may mean. And that's the bracket A, as they would say. Bracket B features number 2 East Alabama State, featuring number 3 Southern, team that won the last SWAC baseball tournament. We'll see what they do in terms of, I'm sure they want to get back in the game action. You have the number 1 seed, as I said earlier, Prairie View, facing off against number 4 Alcorn State. Before I go to you for any of your thoughts in terms of the baseball, what may happen in that tournament, your thoughts there, we'll give you a little time in terms of what's going on there. But let me give a shout out. Chuck Hunt says NIA football championship seems to be a success at Grambling, which they hosted 2 times. That's correct. Done very well is everything I've heard in terms of how the success was with hosting that game. Barrett Williams says, tough loss for my Lady Jags in the SWAC tournament. Great game. Congrats to Bama South, Bama State, that is, as they say there. Chuck Hunt is following us. Barrett Williams says, the 80% rule still in effect for baseball. Check it out. Check it out. Yeah. So you don't have to play all your games. So they got it done for Prairie View in a lot of good ways. Good evening inside HBCU Sports Live from Kay Johnson. Let's see who else we got on here. Ricky Burton, good evening, says what's going on. Karen Griffin is saying hello to everyone. Fred Whitting, that is Winston-Salem State HBCU Heritage Center, Black College Sports Encyclopedia. I got mine. How about yours? Let me give a little shout out. Yeah, I got mine. This is Whitting, let everybody know. Get you a copy, man. Can't be an HBCU fan and not have your encyclopedia just to check people every once in a while. Jamie O. Walker, lecture time. Talking about that, Charles Bishop shared a picture from 1962 in regards to the Orange Boston Classic when last time FAMU and Jackson State played in the Orange Boston Classic, man. I was like, man, got me thinking a little bit and put a little historical note on that. And that literally would have been right in the middle of the civil rights movement. If you look at history from the dates in terms of 1954 to 1968 is the time frame that most historians puts on it. So I was fascinated to see that. Jackson State and FAMU played 61-62, and they split 1-1. FAMU won the first year in 61, and Jackson State got a little bit of revenge in 62. So a little good bit of history there. Fascinating. That's really before AFC and the NFC opened the doors widely to HBCU players, and certainly before you saw major desegregation in the South in terms of football programs. So fascinating when you talk about the talent on those teams in the 50s and the 60s in terms of moving forward. With that, enough of that, Joe Clay. Again, saying hello to you. What's your thoughts in terms of the baseball tournament before we take a deeper dig on some of these softball sports? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm surprised, just like you are, about Prairie View finishing first in the West. They really struggled the bulk of the year, and then they recently got hot with their pitching and their bats heated up, and they pulled out that number one spot in the West. So that's very surprising. I want to see if they can sustain it. You know, can you stay hot over a whole tournament? We'll see. That'll be very interesting to see. And, you know, Jackson State, hey, they get it done quite frequently. You mentioned TSU has been a tournament team out of the past. They seem to find their way once tournament time gets started. So it'll be very interesting. It'll be a very interesting tournament to watch. But again, since I'm here representing the 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast in Prairie View A&M University, I'm pushing for my Panthers to keep it hot.
I wonder how long it'll let you go get that out there. That's pretty good. Good plug. Good plug.
So yeah, we'll see how this goes, but I'm excited to see what happens with this tournament.
We got a producer on there. We're gonna let him get a little FaceTime in here. Shout out to AD Drew giving us some love. Give a shout out. That is one half of the Brian and AD in terms of the sports wrap of BCSN. How you doing today, AD?
I'm doing fine, my brother. I'm doing fine. Just had to shift gears a little bit. It's always fun when you sitting up here commenting and hitting the buttons at the same time. So y'all keep something in mind. If y'all say something I don't like, I do have the mute button right here. Not gonna cut Doc off because it's his show, but I can't cut everybody else off.
That's cold-blooded. That's cold-blooded. But I like
I wouldn't do that.
That's like something I would do with Mike and Charles. Mike always says that. Yeah, I control the mic. It's a little different now. I don't quite control it, but I got good friends in high places. How about that?
There you go.
Without further ado, let me make sure we jump in here with Alan Williams. He's joining us too from 1876 Sports Culture Podcast. As it looks like it's a little Prairie View takeover, so we're gonna see if we can cool them down. I see you representing with the shirt there as well. Nice. How you doing today?
Doing good, bro. Doing good. Glad to be on.
Good deal. Let me go back to you, AD Drew. You were about to speak about some of your thoughts in terms of what we were talking about there.
Well, getting back to this SWAC baseball, you know, it's interesting that because of the normal schedule and with COVID, you know, Prairie View hasn't played the Jackson States and Alabama States and vice versa. So when these teams finally do cross over in the tournament, it's going to be interesting. Is the East as dominant as they appear on paper? Or is the West supreme? Because, yeah, Prairie View won it this year, but there's always this team called Southern sitting out there who has traditionally done not only regular season, but postseason in the SWAC. You know, Jackson State has this streak of 30 win seasons, but how many conference tournament championships do they have in that streak? My point exactly. So it's going to be interesting when they do finally cross over to see who's supreme. And you know how it always goes. Either you get two West teams in the finals or two East teams in the finals. Very rarely do you get East versus West in the finals.
Yeah, I love it, way they set it up in the two divisions. And we're going to mix this up a little bit. We're going to talk about current, and then we're going to fast forward to 2022 when you bring over FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. You're familiar with this following the MEAC in regards to them having two divisions. You know, over there, they have the Southern and the Northern division. They're still doing that this year too. We got one more weekend games that we'll talk about a little bit in terms of FAMU and North Carolina Central that could be really interesting because it really will find out who is going to win the Southern Division. The Norfolk State Spartans have locked up the Northern Division, so we'll see maybe how the seeding goes a little bit there. But back to what we're talking about with the SWAC. Fascinating, as you talked about, AD Drew. Let's stick on that a little bit. No crossover. So you have some teams, Grambling and Jackson, play some midweek games where they'll cross over, but rarely do you see the teams from the outer sides in terms of the far east or the far west, in terms of Alabama or Texas. Rarely do you see them cross over, certainly during the season, sometimes in the preseason where you have games, and obviously with COVID, those will cut down. And as you said, even some of the teams in terms of what they did in the West, other than Jackson being able to get all 24 of their games in, teams in the West had games canceled, and Prairie View was a large bit of that. But talking about Prairie View, if you think about it, they did it the hard way, even though they didn't play all games, at least in terms of what they did in the last 3 series. They swept Southern, which was a Sunday-Monday type matchup where they played doubleheaders on Monday. They swept that. Then they came back and they had a home series against Arkansas Pine Bluff that was surging a little bit. They swept them. Then they come back and you're like, Grambling, okay, it's over. Grambling's going to do what they do, knock them off. Grambling won the first game, so you said, yeah, more is the case. You follow this, and all of a sudden, on Saturday, they sweep the 2 games on Saturday in terms of Prairie View beating Grambling. So they're tied. You're like, what is going on? And then this last weekend where it really fell apart for Grambling is they get swept by Pine Bluff. Therefore, Prairie View wins the Western Division. I was like, oh, this is amazing when I was following this. And I think everybody was asleep. Nobody was following attention to me. I was like, I guess I'm a little too much into this. But I thought it was intriguing in regards to what's matched up there. Dwight Moore says, can PV stay COVID-free? Yeah, I figured probably now they're pretty safe. They've been quarantined and they've been COVID-free over the last 3 weeks. So I think they're probably a pretty good framework there. Brother Joseph is on here. Gerald Joseph, past president of Alpha Eta Lambda, Texas Southern University. Brother there giving me some love and shout out to all the team there. Give him a shout out and representing for us. Dwight Moore is the one that just made those comments. So give us some love there. So I'm going to go back to you, Joe Clay. Any other additional thoughts you have in terms of baseball tournament? Any key matchup that you want to see go on there? As I was alluding to, if Prairie View can get past Alcorn, that 4 matchup, Jackson gets past CSU, that second matchup will be interesting with Jackson State. Prairie View, as AD alluded to, that's when you get your first crossover and you get a chance to see a little bit more about Prairie View and Jackson State for that matter.
That's the game, as you mentioned. PV against JSU. We didn't get to meet them during football season, so hey, why let's catch it during baseball season. That'd be a perfect matchup for me. I'd love to see it. We will then find out if the last week or so, 2 weeks of Prairie View season were legit, if they really are as hot as we think they are.
To your point, they didn't play in basketball either on the men's side.
Ooh.
Both teams were undefeated. Is that what you were going to jump out there and say? Well,
exactly. We've been trying to get some of that Jackson State smoke all of 2021. They've been running from us, man.
Yeah.
Let them tell it, yeah. Calling out Ashley Robinson. What's up, man? Get on the court. Get on the field. Well, I guess we're going to get on the diamond. All right, that'll take it.
In all fairness, Dr. Cavill, the school you work for made sure that matchup didn't happen.
Ooh, body blow.
Body blow, big time. Yeah, they took it to the Prairie Panthers, too. Great point. Let me get into this break. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about softball, which is the current tournaments that go on. We'll start with softball and the SWAC. We'll touch a little bit on the MEAC. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, both out on assignment. So I have 1876 Sports and Culture podcast teaming up, bringing us in here. And we also got Sports Rap with Brian and AD. With AD, I won't say the better half because I don't want to get you in trouble, AD. But we certainly got solidness going in there with AD. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Because the fight isn't over yet.
You will see me choose to protect my community by wearing a face cover.
And even with my face covered,
you will see me.
As a son.
As a man with a never quit attitude.
As a fighter for change.
Join me in wearing a face cover.
To help stop the spread of the coronavirus.
Because this is one small act of kindness
that has the power to make a big difference.
There's a shot.
That
right.
Might be. It could be.
Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
It's never too early.
This is Dr. Will with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington, Charles Bishop are out on assignment, or at least that's what we're going to tell you at this time. We have none other than the 1876 Sports and Culture team with us, or part of that team, Alan Williams, Joe Clay, Joe Cleasy for a lot of folks that you know him out there. And then we got one half of the Sports Rap team, BCSN AD, bringing in for Brian and AD of the Sports Rap. With that, we told you we're going to chime in and give you a little bit of the updates about softball, starting with the SWAC. Before I do that, today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. With that, what I noticed that jumped out with me with the softball, when we talk about this West and East division, again, AD, I like the way you think, because that's what jumped out at me. First 4 matchups, the West jumped on the East, taking 3 out of 4. You had 2 matchups where you had the same divisions playing each other in regards to a Jackson State, Alabama A&M. Jackson State got the better of Alabama A&M again 4-2, and that's after they lost a first-round game to Southern, their rival. Big upset there for a lot of people, 4-3. You also had another matchup between the Western Division where Southern defeats Prairie View 7-5, giving Prairie View their first loss in the tournament, sending them to the elimination bracket, as this is a double elimination bracket. In that game, Southern won 7-5. But in terms of those first day matchups, as I told you, with the West taking 3 out of 4, that was the only East team that got a victory was a shutout, with Alabama State defeating Grambling 11-0 in that first game of the day. Then you had Prairie View got off on the right foot, if you would, a white right cleat, I might say, in softball, defeating Alabama A&M 2-0. Then you had Texas Southern defeating Alcorn State 3-2 in a really close contest. Alcorn is playing some really close games, but getting it done in some way. And then, obviously, so that was 3 out of 4. Then you have the East with the big payback as they get it done these last series of games. First, Alcorn State sends Grambling home 2 barbecue. As Alcorn State Braves go 8-2, defeating Grambling. And then you had Southern, Texas Southern, losing to Alabama State 2-0, where you start to see the East getting a little bit of that payback, as I said. Then you had Texas Southern losing the elimination game to Alcorn State. 10 innings, classic game here, losing 6-5, sending Texas Southern home. And then Prairie View to close out early games of the day, lost to Jackson State, 2-1. So the top 2 seeds out of the West are home, going home, or went home, or on the bus. They're on their way. With the thoughts on that, let me jump straight to you, AD. What are your thoughts in any of these softball matchups and games on the SWAC side?
It's pretty typical every HBCU conference tournament that I see when it comes to baseball and softball, one side of the conference tends to dominate. If you're taking 4 teams from each side of the conference, that one side of the conference is going to get 3, if not all 4 teams in the winners bracket. Every time I've seen the SIAC tournament, it has happened in baseball and in softball. Same thing in the MEAC tournament. It always seems like it's the MEAC South. It always seems like it's the SIAC West. And once again, the SWAC is continuing that pattern. Unlike baseball, pitching is important, but not as important in softball as it is in baseball. Softball is more about timely hits and situational hits. We all know what softball is. You get a run on base, you steal second, you bunt over the third, and then you take your chance on getting them home. Who can do that the best and the most often? But I love girls softball, fast pitch softball. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is exciting. It is high energy, high intensity. Ladies in the dugout chanting.
There's never a quiet moment in a softball game. And the one thing I love about a softball game, I could watch a doubleheader of a softball game by the time game 2 of a baseball game starts.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, it amazed me the first time I went out there and saw a couple of SWAC teams playing softball. I was like, no, what are they doing? They don't get quiet. They talking the whole game. It was amazing to me. Let me go straight to you. I see you smiling a little bit there, Alan. What are your thoughts? Any game that you wanted to look at particularly, or just general overall thoughts in terms of SWAC tournament thus far?
Well, I got to tell you, as we speak, Alcorn is up on Jackson State 3-0 in the first.
So hot.
They hot. Jackson State came in with that smoke, but looks like Alcorn got a little something for them. They coming out this gate running hard. These girls like, we ain't here to play with you.
Great point. Joe Clay, any matchup that you want to look at, or just thoughts overall on softball?
I love to see the strength of the softball programs in the SWAC. There are a lot. I know in the Texas area, in the Houston area, there are a lot of big time softball programs. So I'm really happy to see that some of those little league players and those high school players filter into the SWAC teams across the belt and infuse these schools with talent with softball. It is my middle daughter played softball, and so yeah, they chant the whole game, man. If they play a tournament, it's chanting from Friday to Sunday till the tournament is over. And I see they take that to the college level as well. So they keep the fun in the game. It's exciting to see.
Yeah,
can I throw one other thing out, Dr. Cavill?
Yeah, please do. Jump in there.
When it comes to HBCUs competing against the big boys or the big girls in sports, we don't have a chance in football. We don't have a chance most of the time in basketball. But softball and baseball are 2 sports that we can actually compete in. Why? Because you get into a tournament, if you've got hot pitching in either one of these sports, you can compete, because what they say, good pitching beats good hitting any day of the week. This is the one, or these 2 sports right here are the sports where HBCUs can go at the Division I level and beat the SECs, the ACCs, and really make some noise in the regional tournaments. What was it, a few years ago? Alabama State got to the regional finals, scared the crap out of everybody. What would that look like on ESPN week 2 with Alabama State playing that?
Yeah, you remember when Bethune-Cookman set the world on fire and actually won their regional, and headed to a regional, scared the bejesus out of Texas in their first couple of games, particularly the first one where they gave them all that smoke, as Alan will say. That was fascinating. So you're absolutely right. Then you go back a little bit on baseball. You had Jackson State upset the number 1 seed when they last went to the tournament, Lafayette, that year. Go a little further back, you had Southern with Ricky Weeks take on the number 1 seed in Southern Miss, as they really did them won their first game, came back, had Southern Miss on the ropes until late in that game, 7th inning, when they couldn't quite hold on to it and just got outscored. You had Texas Southern with the upset over Rice. You had Prairie View when Coach Robinson was over there, when Prairie View was taking its extension, playing in the region over there at Rice, and had a 4-1, 4-2 lead for a controversial play on first base. Actually, in my opinion, took the game away, but I thought it was a bad play. And this was even when I was sitting in the press box, a lot of people at Rice were looking around and saying, I don't know about that call. So that tells you everything you need to know there. But yeah, to your point, you've seen that. Bethune-Cookman on the baseball side, as they got into that one game away from a super regional, taking Florida all the way down to the final spot in that game, deep into the 7th, 8th inning, where a couple of plays did them in. So you're right. Baseball is one to keep your eyes on and fascinating. And we might go back a little bit to baseball and talk about FAMU and Bethune-Cookman coming over. But let's first sneak over there to the MEAC, make sure they give them appropriate love. They only had 4 teams that went into the tournament. Had a major upset with North Carolina A&T getting slammed by the number 2 team in the North, which was Norfolk State. They defeated them 17-3 in that first game 1. And then the number 1 seed out of the South in terms of Morgan State, I should say number 1 seed in the North, typo here, in game 2 had Morgan State defeating North Carolina Central 4-3 in a really well-played game, close game there. Friday matchups, game 3 is Norfolk State, Morgan State. Game 4 is North Carolina A&T against North Carolina Central, that rivalry game. So that should be fascinating in a lot of ways. And then obviously you have game 5, which will be game 4 winner, loser in game 3. Saturday will be the championship, which is 12 o'clock noon. Will be on Flow Softball, Flow TV, for those that don't know about that. That's game 4 winner versus game 5. So that'll be fascinating to see who comes out of the MEAC in terms of representing softball. Fascinating there. Let me go back a little bit in terms of what do you think this means moving forward with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman coming over in this divisional play. Get your thoughts on that. We'll start with you, Joe Clay. You can give some thoughts on MEAC softball if you want, or you can jump right into the expansion of FAMU coming into this loaded SWAC in terms of the East Division, where they will match up against Jackson State and Alabama State. For the longest, most people thought about the West Division of the SWAC being loaded. You have Alcorn that has come on over to the West. They had some years where they played some good baseball, but not of late. So I think you have to look at maybe the power shifting from the West to the East in terms of baseball. Some will say over the last couple of years that it's shifted that way anyway with Alabama State and Jackson. I think there's some arguable, but certainly now I'm fascinated to see how this goes on. What are your thoughts in terms of the expansion of the SWAC with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman?
Well, for those who may not know, Florida boys play baseball, and they play with speed. So the SWAC better be ready. And you can say that in all the sports, but baseball, they play both Bethune-Cookman and FAMU play a fast brand of baseball. They keep a lot of guys in the state to play. And so I expect and anticipate that they're going to come into the East and cause a lot of trouble. And I'm all for it. Let the East get that smoke. They can have that smoke.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What's interesting, over the last couple of years during the week, and you even had some series where Jackson State, particularly Alabama State, would play FAMU, and they've had some clashes matchup. You had the inaugural classic played at Atlanta with the Atlanta Braves sponsoring in terms of Grambling and FAMU playing in that game. So you got a little taste of it then, but it was interesting and fascinating going forward. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back out of the break and get Alan and AD's thoughts on the expansion SWAC baseball side. And then we'll dig into some current topics and see where direction y'all want to take it. So this is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. Mike Watson and Charles Bishop out on assignment. So we're joined with Joe Clay, Alan Williams at 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast. Check them out. They got a big one coming in. I'm going to let Joe Clay back come in out of the break, tell you a little bit about who they have on the next podcast coming out next week. It's a big one. It's a good one. It was so good. They did 2 tapings of it in terms of 2 series. So it'll take you 2 different series to get all of that. I won't spill the beans. I'll make y'all wait on this. Then we'll get AD's thoughts in terms of what that looks like as well. So this is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Stick with us. We'll be right back out of this quick break.
My God. It's another sad day in America.
Painful to be introduced to George Floyd during his last breath with a cop's knee on his neck. On his neck. He deserves so much more.
So much more. How many black lives have to be taken before something is done?
We are not a threat.
I am shaking as I type.
This has got to stop.
We are sick of it.
We need conviction.
I just want us all to live.
Death will not stop until the powers that be are finally held accountable.
Don't look away from the truth until every one of us are free from white supremacy.
The world stands with you.
Criminalizing and killing of black and brown bodies is not new. It's as old as America. It's just getting filmed more.
Do you know what it feels like to be hunted? To have a new hashtag for a dead black person every single day? How does one plan a life if they aren't sure they will have a life to plan?
Trayvon, Armstrong, Deborah Dance,
Megan
Michelle Lee
George Floyd. His name was George Floyd. Say his name. Say his name.
George Floyd. Say his name.
Say their names. Once again, and always, we fight for justice.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Rest in power, beautiful. You didn't deserve this.
Follow the Black College Sports Network on social media at MyBCSN1, the number 1, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MyBCSN1.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're back with the crew, 1876, Joe Clay and Alan Williams. I know I told you I'd let Joe spoil us with that announcement, but I'm going to go to Alan. I'm going to let him do it for us. Go ahead, Alan. Give us the announcement and then give us your thoughts in regards to the expansion of the SWAC with the baseball teams of FAMU and Bethune-Cookman.
Right. Yeah, so coming up, really excited about this. Our last 2 episodes for this season with the 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast. We've got an in-depth interview with President Dr. Ruth Simmons of Prairie View A&M University. You do not want to miss this. I mean, this content is content that you won't hear anywhere else. Trust me. It was so good. We split it into 2 episodes because it was too much for one sitting.
Couldn't edit it out.
Couldn't edit it out.
No doubt about it. Yeah, y'all gotta go check that out. It really is a good one. With that, Alan, give me your thoughts in terms of the expansion of the SWAC in terms of baseball with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. You can even sneak in a little bit of softball because they're gonna be good in that as well. Wow.
Yeah, I think bringing those 2 powerhouse teams in is really it's gonna ignite the East. And with that realignment moving Jackson State over to the East, man, the East is going to be where it is when you talk baseball and even softball with Jackson State bringing that heat in both baseball and softball. It's going to be really exciting over in the East. And West, we're going to have some work to do because as we can see, Graham is just going through something right now. I don't know what it is, but it happened to him in football. I mean, every sport in 2021, they looking for a mulligan. So I feel sorry for Graham fam right now, but we'll get it together. You know, PV, all I know is we won the West. It ain't got to be pretty, you know. They say, you know, but what about the record? Hey, all I know is Golden State had 73 wins in 2015 and 16, and Cleveland Cavaliers won the championship. So, hey, you can keep them wins. Give me that ring.
No doubt about it. Let me give a shout out to Brother Herman Shelton. Says I think it's even in between the West and the East. Good thoughts there. AD Drew, what are your thoughts? And I heard you have a nice interview you want to drop a little shout out to as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, earlier this week, Brian and I taped an interview with Harold Michael Harvey, famed author, Tuskegee alum, and baseball aficionado. And we may not split it up into 2 segments like you guys did, but it's a pretty lengthy interview. It's about an hour and a half long, so we haven't figured out how we're going to drop it yet. And we'll probably drop it early next week, probably on Monday since it's already Thursday. Don't like to really drop big stuff like that on Friday. You got to keep it short because people's attention spans are short over the weekend. Now,
know that's a smart move. Yeah, never drop it unless it's bad news. Then you may.
Oh, the Friday news dump, the 4 o'clock news dump. We had a president who was famous for it. Ooh, did I say that out loud? My bad. I don't want to get censored on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Well, he can't censor you now, but he will. He will push for you to be ousted. So, well, never mind. We won't say that.
Y'all out here high side.
Let's get back to this baseball thing. But actually, let's get back to all these spring type sports. Track, softball, MEAC. Put an asterisk by it. And I stole this from Brian Fulford. I know he's watching. Brian, I stole this from you. This is Brian Fulford original. Put an asterisk by it because no one from the state of Florida is competing in the MEAC in those sports. So you got to discount that automatically. No Bethune, no FAM. No FAM in softball, no FAM in track. No Bethune in softball, no Bethune in track. Where do all the athletes come from? The state of Florida.
Florida got the speed.
For those sports, you have to discount that in the MEAC. I'm sorry, it is what it is. Now.
Oh, wow.
He ain't gonna let A&T leave out of here with nothing. A&T got to leave the SWAC empty-handed.
No.
AD said that out loud. I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, we'll tag this one. Yes, send tweets to AD Drew.
That's all right, because I got an interview with Jamie coming up later on this week. So I know he's gonna get on me for saying that, and he's probably gonna get on Brian also. But let's look at baseball and the MEAC. We talk about coming over to the FAM and Bethune coming over to the SWAC. Let's see. The whole MEAC South is gone. Think about that. There is no more MEAC South in baseball. FAMU goes to the SWAC. Bethune goes to the SWAC. A&T to the Big South. North Carolina Central has been cut.
That's crazy.
Think about
it. But what about Kentucky State coming?
There you go.
And Virginia State.
We talk about the current MEAC. The MEAC South is no more. It's like the old Norris division in the NHL.
The Norris division, yes.
It's
Detroit and Chicago, and that was it.
Exactly. Hey, but it's going to be real fun in the SWAC East. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think for the next couple of years, the champion is going to come out of the West because the teams in the East are going to be so good. They're going to beat up on each other so much. You got a Prairie View that came out of nowhere. Southern's going to come back. Southern may come back and do something this year. How long is Grambling going to be down? Let's be real.
They'll be back.
Exactly. But you got 3 teams in the East. All 6 teams 3 teams in the West. All 6 teams in the East are going to be good and good to great. You're going to have a team 3-4 games over 500 winning the East. They're going to beat up on each other. The champion for the next couple of years until the market corrects itself will probably come from the West in 22 and 23.
Man, I'm still over here stumped because you just said that about softball and track and field. We're going to get into a little more a bit of the track and field with A&T. We better show them some love and talk about that. I know y'all want to get on that a little bit, but you teased something out of that with Kentucky State and Virginia State at HBCU Sports and HBCU Game. They gave a deep dive talking about Chicago State. So obviously we discussed it in depth. So I want to at least get each of y'all's opinion because we hadn't heard from your perspective in regards to what that looks like. So let me go to you, Joe Clay. Kentucky State, Virginia State, in terms of the MEAC expansion, do you think it makes sense? Are you with it? It does create that Norfolk State, Virginia rivalry on the Division I level. Kentucky State, interesting. Both of them have baseball, as you said, so it saves the MEAC in terms of baseball, as you just talked about those teams disappearing from the MEAC South. We didn't even talk about Savannah State going back 2 years ago. So it's literally dissipated, and there is no such thing as a MEAC South in baseball as we once knew it. So fascinating there. But with that, getting back to Kentucky State, Virginia State, Joe Clay, what's your thought?
I'm excited for the MEAC. I hope it happens. We need the MEAC. HBCU sports needs a strong MEAC. I remember a couple years ago when we were at the SWAC MEAC Challenge, and I think he was the sponsor. I can't remember his name, but he was talking to us all. Yada, you were there, and he was saying how it doesn't matter if it's your school playing at this SWAC MEAC championship game. It's a HBCU, and we all need to be there to support it because it makes us all stronger. And so my attitude towards the MEAC and bringing up other schools to fill out the conference is it makes us all stronger collectively as HBCU sports goes across the board. I want the MEAC. We need the MEAC to rebuild itself and become strong again. And if that, with other schools leaving, and it opens the door for your Kentucky States and Virginia States, then more power to them. I hope they can make the move. I hope the move makes financial sense for them. I hope they can build their programs up to be able to make that jump from D2 to D1. I know it's a big deal. It's a big task financially and competition-wise, because that will require them to bump up their recruiting to a whole nother level. But I think it's a great move. If it makes sense. So I'm all for it.
Great points. And you brought in John Grant, Executive Director of the MEAC SWAC Challenge, as well as the Celebration Bowl. Gives me a chance to give a little plug. We'll have him on here next Tuesday. I wonder if he'll be bringing some news. We'll find out in terms of that, just touching on that a little bit. With that being said, Alan Williams, jump in here. What are your thoughts in terms of Kentucky State, Virginia State? Like it, love it, hate it? Where are you going with that?
I like the concept. I think the challenge is going to be, stepping up from that D2 to D1. There's a significant increase in budgets that's going to be required in order to try to fund those scholarships. One problem that even our current D1 schools in the SWAC have is many of the sports outside of football and basketball are not fully funded. So, and then you bring a Kentucky State where now you've got to travel to the states of South Carolina, North Carolina, the DC area, Maryland. That is there is no easy way to get there. You can't just say, well, let's just hop on the bus, because some of those are 16, 17-hour bus rides. You got to fly. And, being going from D2 to D1, you're not flying private. You flying out of Lexington or you flying out of Louisville. So anybody that's ever flown out of Lexington, there are 3 gates at the whole airport, and you can't buy a ticket anywhere for less than $800.
Oh my God.
Trust me, I've flown into that airport several times, and it got to a point where I would just fly to Cincinnati and drive. So the travel is going to be a huge hurdle for them. Virginia State may be in a little better situation because it's a state-funded school, and the state of Virginia is heavily driven. Their economy is heavily driven by government employees. The government didn't get a hiccup in the COVID. Kentucky, not so much. So I think, Virginia State with their budget is going to be a little more stable than Kentucky State, where they're basically sucking high and tick when you got University of Kentucky there and you got Louisville. So, it's going to be tough. They're in a tougher competitive environment in that state. Virginia, there's a ton of universities there, but to see Virginia State step into the MEAC, I think regionally, it's a better fit for Virginia State than it is for Kentucky State. So I hope both of them make it. I'm more confident with Virginia State.
Yeah, you said it, and I know AB wants to jump in here. I'm going to let you jump in here. We're going to take this quick break, so we're going to give it as a tease before we take this quick break for our last 15 minutes of the show. But I got to put this out here. Lonnie Shaw is hacking up today. He's our resident Aggie fan out of Dallas. He brings us much love. He's always on here talking about that track. But then he said, give the SWAC another warning. Once again, FAMU is bringing all their umpires and referees with them. I love it. Want that smoke? Great one. Jerome G. Sutton says SWAC officials. He puts up his double eyes after the comment there. We're on display this spring football season. So he said he don't want to hear anything about the SWAC officials after what he saw this spring. They are cutting up. Keep it coming. Lab lectures, they getting it done. This is Dr. Camille inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, sitting in for Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, with none other than Joe Clay, Alan Williams, at the 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast. Again, listen up. Next week, they'll be dropping an interview with President Ruth Simmons of Prairie View A&M University. It was such a nice interview they had to break it down in 2 parts. So 2-part series on that. A.D. Drew is going to come right back with his comments, and he's ready to dig in. It's going to be fascinating because what you all do not realize is Drew coached in the SIAC, so he's familiar with Kentucky State and the difference. So we'll get some insight that you probably can't get anywhere else. So stick around, stick with us. We'll be right back. Do not change that dial.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in 1 cup with Earthblend Coffee.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports Network.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, sitting in for Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, as they're out on assignment or they're doing whatever. You know how that is. You know that team, they might be trying to figure out some rules of engagement. Well, who knows? We have Joe Clay and Alan Williams of 1876 Sports and Culture podcast. We just had Alan Williams talking about them flights. Somebody jumped in and said, yeah, $800 tickets. So yeah, he went in on that airport. So I was just going to say, yeah, when you talk about Kentucky, as everybody said, we teased a little bit earlier, ditch Mitch. And so that's not going to help you either. But with that said, let's go with AD Drew. What you got to say?
First of all, when it comes to travel from Kentucky to the SIAC West, have you really looked at the distance for some of these teams in the SIAC West? From Frankfort, Kentucky to Mobile, Alabama, where Spring Hill College is 12 hours on the bus. The furthest team in the new MEAC, which would be actually Delaware State from Frankfort, Kentucky, is 10 and a half hours on the bus. The big difference is their average travel goes up, but their longer distances aren't the same, because outside of Central State, the next closest team to Kentucky State in the SIAC is Lane, which is a 5-hour bus ride. So they're used to that travel. You know, them going to DC is not that bad. Them going down to South Carolina State, North Carolina Central, that's just like them going to Tuskegee and Miles. So there really isn't that much of a difference when it comes to travel for Kentucky State. The thing is going to be for those non-revenue sports, where we'll include basketball in that, Kentucky State needs a travel partner. That's where Chicago State comes in. That's where bringing them in is going to help, because no one wants to take that trip to Kentucky just to play Kentucky State. You need to get two while you're on that swing somewhere. Chicago State will play an important role in that. You can catch Kentucky State and Chicago State on the same swing if you're those teams. That's going to be important. We know Kentucky State and Virginia State were targeted because they have baseball programs. MEAC will be down to 4 baseball programs after this year. Them having football and everything else, is a bonus. Kentucky State has the facilities. Virginia State has the facilities. What is going to happen to Central State if Kentucky State leaves the SIEC? That's another question everybody needs to ask. Because now Central State has no travel partner.
State, do you think Central State will try to join Kentucky State?
Honestly, no. Let's think. 10 years ago, Central State was an NAIA team. So you're talking about jumping from NAIA to Division I within just over a decade? Whew, that's tough, man. That's real tough. Another team you need to watch out for, watch Bluefield State. Virginia State leaves, watch Bluefield State joining the CIAA. They just added a bunch of new sports. Yeah, they're a powerhouse in baseball, but they've got everything else in order to compete in the CIAA. They'll just have to find somewhere else to play baseball. So watch Bluefield State coming into the CIAA if Virginia State should leave to maintain the integrity of the CIAA.
Yeah, great point. It'll be interesting to see how this conference training, as I like to say, how it continues.
Go back to my article from April of last year, mybcsn.net. Some of this stuff is in there.
Oh, yes, it is.
All the references are in there. Go back. It's going to be updated within the next few weeks.
Steve Miller says Central State is just sitting out there by themselves.
And they are. They really are. They're like Harris-Stowe and Lincoln of Missouri. They're just out there as far as HBCU schools. They're like Langston, just out there over there by themselves.
No doubt. Great point. So if they bring in 3, you will talk about taking basketball up to 10 teams again. So that's fascinating on that side. You save baseball with the 6, obviously, and then you get back into 9 teams with 8 teams with football. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Let's change it a little bit, get in here. Interested by this Chris Paul Basketball Academy that will be played in Winston-Salem, June 15 and 19. First ever HBCU Con. HBCU Con is a basketball academy event for elite players from HBCUs. It's put together by Chris Paul. He'll bring in other professional athletes, both retired and current players, to work with these athletes. It'll be a 2-day tournament with a televised championship game on Juneteenth, part of the Juneteenth weekend. So he has a little bit of everything there. There'll be seminars, college fair vendors, and esports lounge will be included in terms of this. Internship initiatives will be associated with this. Some proceeds from the event, which is partnered with TLC Sports, the Bell Group community. HBCU Game Day will be donated to HBCU Statement from Chuck Stinson, managing director of TLS States. HBCU Con was created because we were seeing adequate representation of HBCU athletes being drafted to professional ranks, nor HBCU graduates involved on the business side of sports, whether a corporate or production position. Stinson continued, we see the issue as a lack of exposure, training, and knowledge. I think it's one thing in terms of the exposure on the draft side. Some of that you might not be able to control as much, but certainly in terms of those on the business side of sports, I'm especially excited to hear in terms of understanding about both sides of that in the business. So that's fascinating there. So I did want to share that. As we get into this, as we get to the closing time here, I did want to go around the lab lecture as we get in there and get some closing thoughts. I know some of y'all want to make close on in terms of A&T, in terms of that track and field, what they're able to do nationally. And the comment was made on Tuesday, and I know, Al, you'll appreciate this. A&T won, on the men's side, they won every event. Let me say that again. On the men's side, A&T won every event. And the coach said that you hadn't seen anything yet. He was holding back as he's waiting to release the teams, right? Unleash the teams, I should say, on the NCAA in terms of the track and field championship. I'm like, all right, I'm ready for this. Let me go to you, Al, first with that tease. What are your thoughts?
Man, all I got to say is that A&T men's 4x4, I don't think anybody in the country wants that smoke. They ran a 3-minute .23. That's bananas. If you got, I don't think in Eugene, Oregon, when they line up, whoever's running that anchor and they see Trevor Stewart over there about to run that anchor for A&T, you might see some folks pull up with that fake hamstring, like, no, coach, put that Pentecostal finger up, like, pull me out, coach, because I don't think anybody wants any of that smoke as they advance over here to Oregon, man, in June.
Oh man, that's perfect. Let me go to you, Joe Clay. Any final thoughts that you want to share? Any direction you want to take?
First, I want to take a step right back to Chris Paul. You talk about an advocate for HBCUs. Chris Paul is a true advocate, man, for Winston-Salem. He is putting them he's doing everything he can. He's putting them on his back, and he's going to carry them to wherever it is that they want to go. So I just want to give a shout out to Chris Paul. I love what he's doing. I'm always hesitant to give A&T any love because I'm salty that they leaving. I just hate it. I hate they leaving us for the other man's conference, and I ain't giving them no love, but I'm envious of their program. That's all.
I feel you. I understand. With that, AD Drew, any final comments before you do that? I did want to throw out there the HBCU Hoops Phenom Maker to star in new documentary series Big Man on Campus from theroot.com. 5-star basketball recruit. Maker made headlines last summer when he passed on offers from Kentucky, UCLA, and other powerhouse schools in order to commit to Howard University, and as he continues on his quest to make the HBCU movement real so that others will follow, end quote. We'll be fortunate enough to join him on his journey. Apple TV Plus has greenlit Big Man on Campus, a new documentary series that will share his coming of age story as he navigates the triumphs and tribulations of his freshman year at Howard University against the backdrop of Black Lives Matter movement and the ongoing global pandemic. Should be fascinating to see what's going on there. I did want to share that. I'm sure there are a lot of people. I thought that was a big deal in terms of what that looks like. AD Drew, any final thoughts from you?
Just want to shift gears a little bit. Going back to baseball, in the Mountain East Conference, Division II, West Virginia State went into that conference as the number 1 seed. That conference tournament began today. West Virginia State was upset 4-3 by Alderson Brothers. They are now in the losers bracket, which means they will have to win at 5 games in 3 days in order to win the Mountain East title.
That's tough. But if you're the number 1 seed, you have pitching. So if anybody can do it as a number 1 seed, we'll see if they can do it. But you're right, that's going to be a tough road.
And I haven't had a chance to watch it. Just looking at the stat lines were pretty even. They just outscored in the middle innings. I mean, 4-3 ball game. What more can you ask for? You're in the ball game the whole time.
That's right.
So no errors, very few walks. So just looking at the raw stats, it was a competitive ball game without big mistakes. Just obviously one team had a timely hit versus the other team. They play tomorrow at noon Eastern versus Wheeling, who lost to Concord 15-1 today. So in theory, West Virginia State should get to the weekend. And you can go to mountaineast.org to follow them because they are the lone small school baseball team that we have remaining playing baseball right now.
So I'm pulling for those Yellow Jackets, man. You know, both my parents graduated West Virginia State. My granddaddy did too. My dad's actually in that West Virginia State Hall of Fame. So let's go Yellow Jackets. Pull this off, baby.
Man, nice that you got that plug in. I like that. Last update we'll give you. Alcorn State still showing that smoke. They're leading 3-1. Top of the 4th. 2-2 count just popped up by the Braves. So Tigers record their first out, but it is 3-1. Alcorn State Braves leading Jackson State. Should be interesting to see how this goes down. Check that out on the SWAC Digital Network. Thank you for listening to Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, the Dean of HBCU sports coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. With our guests, we hope you enjoy the interview. In terms of just our thoughts today, bringing in our guests, Joe Clay and Alan Williams from 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast, as well. With Mike Watts and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, Twitter, Facebook, and that's Dr. KENYATTACAVIL on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. Subscribe when you get there on YouTube. Dream big and continue to move forward. We're going to try this and see who can get through it. We will talk with you soon. Let's go with Alan first.
Class.
I got your back. Course.
Lecture.
Dismiss.